Hey guys, it's Troy here, and I wanted to talk about some more old pens, and one of which, in this selection right here, I actually acquired recently. And as I've been showing you some vintage Schaefers here lately that I got within a lot of pens from Antique Digger, I wanted to share with you a Parker 45 that I was able to get as well. So, here are some of my Parker 45s that I have in my collection. This here is a desk set, and I actually have a nice little base that goes along with it, and this used to sit on my desk an awful lot, and it was a very good workhorse sort of pen. A Parker 45 Flighter, and you can see that it's all silver. Here's a Parker 45 in the Classic, and this is the Parker 45 in the Insignia model, and that is a gold-filled, as I recall, gold-filled coating that is on that particular pen. The Parker 45, it was released in 1960 or so. They had a lot of success, as you recall, Parker, with the Parker 51 and some of the 21s. As a matter of fact, I've got some of those sitting right here on my desk. Parker 21, which was, you know, a lower end, so to speak, version of like a Parker 51, which was this right here. And this is a pretty good writing Parker 51 that I've got right here. I've also got Parker 51s that are in a desk set. So these two came together, and up behind me on some shelves, I actually have the base that it comes in. These two actually suck up water or ink very well, but I couldn't get them to write very well. So I was a little disappointed with this particular set. But going back to more Parkers, here was the Parker 61, which, in my opinion, to me, actually was a great writing pen compared to the 51. And I kind of like my 51. 51s to me were a little overrated, but it's one of those kinds of pens that every collector talking about vintage says, you got to get a Parker 51 in your collection. Okay, fine. So, I got some 51s, and I went with them. And I eventually picked up the 21. I picked up some 45s, and I liked the 45. The 45 was actually geared towards the student market. They were going for the low-end market. As a matter of fact, they chose the name 45 like the old Colt 45 pistol, from the Old West, and they're going to take aim at the lower end market, the student market, and all other pens out there. That was like 1960. By 1957, Parker had already picked up and took over the Eversharp brand. And matter of fact, you might as well, as far as I'm concerned, there are several models of Eversharps that you might as well call a Parker 45 as far as I'm concerned. These are the Big E. I've got two of the Big E. One's in a medium nib and one's in a broad nib. And quite honestly, they are, for all intents and purposes, as far as I'm concerned, nothing more than the Eversharp version of a Parker 45. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take off. There, see those nibs right there? Well, they're kind of similar to this, the desk set version, and here is the Parker Flighter. And you can see the nib, very similar, just a little more exposed on the Big E under Eversharp branding, as opposed to the 45 here, where it's a little more concealed, a little more semi-hooded. I would take these two and open those up as well, but it's going to be identical to this, and these two are inked. So that's why I'm not doing that. To give you an idea what the difference is between these nibs and, let's say, on a Parker 21. Parker 21 is very much like that Parker 51 nib. Alright, so here's a Parker 51 right here. And you can see that's a hooded nib. And all you get basically is the tip that's exposed. A little more exposed over here. Gold nib here, steel nibs here. So it is very different. Later on you can tell in the kind of materials. This being the Classic was some of the first branded of the Parker 45. And it came in various colors. I'm going to post a link for you, by the way, to go check parkerpens.net. I'm going off the top of my head as far as that website. They got a page on the 45 that's going to have some really good information for you and a lot of pictures, so you can see the various, the flighters, what they all look like, different colored tassies on it, and you can see the different colors that were in the line for the Classic. You can see the insignias and see what those were like. And let me just come down here and might as well just do the very last one. And the Parker 61, and that little arrow was knocked off and is not here. And I did a video on that some time ago, but that's very actually common with the 61. Great writing pen, great performing pen, but often that little inset of that arrow would not survive just because it was pretty much a poor design to be having something glued here and putting on a cap, taking off. They eventually get knocked off with time. So if you're looking for a good workhorse pen, I consider the Parker 45 to be a very good, reliable, inexpensive workhorse vintage pen. I've had these in my collection. Like I've had this one for quite some time, I've had this one for some time, and this one for some time. I've had these and I've used them a lot over the years. And every so often, once they run through my cycle, especially the flighter, just recently actually I pulled this flighter out, and just before doing this video today, I flushed out that one and I flushed out this one, because these both were in my collection and both had gone through my pen of the day cycle or my use cycle and needed to be flushed. And knowing that I wanted to go ahead and do a video on this pen right here, the Insignia model, and that is the one that I got with a bunch of lever fillers. See, out of that whole lot of pens that I got from Antique Digger, all were lever fillers except for two. One was a Waterman Phileas, and the other I recognized right away that he had the gold colored Parker 45 looking thing. And yep, turned out, sure enough, that's what it was. It was a Parker 45 Insignia model with a little black tassie here at the end. So I had that set aside to clean up. This was in my box of pens that needed to be cleaned. This was in my box of pens needed to be cleaned. All the rest of these Parkers were in my drawer, having been cleaned previously and used. I went through each of these as well. So these were cleaned in my drawer. So I've used all of these quite extensively. As a matter of fact, this particular pen, I mentioned Antique Digger, I actually had him refurbish this one for me. I picked this up off from eBay and it needed some work, so at one point I just sent it to him and he worked on it, and it works very well. This particular one didn't need any work on it. Now, one of the things about the Parker 45 is that it was a cartridge converter style pen. So let me show you about the cartridge converter aspect of this particular Parker flighter. And one of the things about the vintage Parker 45s that I've seen so far is on the nicer models like this flighter right here, you open it up and it's got one of those squeeze converters. If you are familiar with, let's say, the Pilot Metropolitan, and they come with a converter, and it's that squeeze converter, well, Parker came out with this in 1960, or 1961 or so, I think, when they introduced the converter. And, this model was produced all the way up until around 2008, so it had a good long production run. And you should be able to use any Parker cartridge or converter inside of this. But these squeeze converters were fairly common, and I got those in a good many, in most of these, with exception of one, and I'll show you here momentarily. But it is a removable converter, and that's one of the things I really did like about that compared to, let's say, my Parker 51, where that was not going to be the case whatsoever. If you had an aerometric filler, it was going to be stuck on there. If you had a vac filler, it was going to be stuck no matter what. Alright, so let me show this one. I don't know if this one still had a converter in it or not, and it did. Another squeeze converter right there. Okay, and this is a very nice desk set, so I would expect one. This one I know had the same squeeze converter, and this one was kind of tough coming out. I had to work on that one to get that converter out a little bit. This one here, the classic. This is the first of the 1960s Parker 45s, and this one had, I believe, a cartridge in it, and you can't really read it all right here, but it does say it's Quink ink. It is washable blue, and it was for Eversharp and Parker, because by this time Eversharp had already been taken in by Parker, or purchased by Parker. So it's a Parker pen company, made in USA. Quink fits Eversharp and Parker, washable blue, Parker pen company. So I do have a closer up of that. What I do like though is with the ink in it, you can actually see that contrast a whole lot better. So I flushed out that cartridge, and what I did was I put in a green ink to go along with that pen because it's green. So I put in some Monteverde Yosemite green, and I used up the last of my sample of that to put into that. Alright, so we'll talk about the pen itself here in a little bit, and I may go ahead and give you some dimensions for it. Parker 45s are still very easy to find on eBay, through retailers who specifically deal in vintage pens. The 45 is not in production anymore, like I said, up through the 2008 or so, as I recall, was when they stopped production altogether of the Parker 45. But they are plentiful online. I find them all the time, and as such, I tend to pick them up when I see a good deal, or one that I like the nib on it, let's say, or this one because it happened to be available to me, and I knew the 45 being a good, reliable workhorse when I saw it in the gold pattern. I thought that it looked almost like a flighter, only in gold, and it turns out, yes, and it is the insignia, just like this here. I do recall was, the insignia model because of the pattern that was on the Parker 61. So let me put some of these away, and these two are the only two that are inked, and we'll play with that here momentarily. So the Parker 45, this is the one I really wanted to show you, but I figured I might as well ink up another one just so you can see a little bit of difference in how they may look and how they may hold and write in a slightly different ink, maybe different nib. So I wanted to go ahead and pull one out and ink it up. So I figured this would be a good one to pull out and ink up. This one here being the newer one. One of the neat things about this one, you can even see right there where there used to be the sticker. I'm pretty sure that's where the sticker was. That was on that particular pen, and I couldn't get that off. And I went ahead and I polished this up some today. I may actually work on it even just a little more. In a few little spots I see where I could use it. But it still is better than it was. It was kind of grungy a little bit, a little scuffed when I got it, and so I went ahead and used some auto polish on it. Now, some people have asked me what it is I use on my pens. Some people use semi-chrome. This is sort of like semi-chrome. It's called Autosol. Essentially, it's a German-made metal polish, and I've been using this for years, and it's worked fairly well for me. It was less expensive than semi-chrome, at least it was when I bought this tube, and I figured I'd run with it. And it, like I said, it's done fairly well. And I use that on most of my pens when I'm working on them, restoring it. And I didn't put any gloss on this. All I put was that Autosol on it. You can see right on this one, it does have a nice insignia that is engraved into it right there. Okay, made in USA, Parker, and then right there on that cap band, you get the Parker logo. So this is a classier looking one as far as I'm concerned. This is one I wouldn't mind taking into a business meeting, taking to work, and being seen using this. This one here is more of a student looking pen, but you could probably still use this in business and would fit right in, just because it's still a classy looking pen. You've got that insignia right there, Parker there, and on the back, again, you get it where it's made in the USA. So, you know, they're both decent looking pens, but this is probably a little more elegant, a little more stylish in its look when you've got that striping on it, and just looks a little more business professional, I guess. And whereas this was aimed specifically at the student market, but still a pretty good looking student pen. So let's go ahead and put some nib to paper. And yes, I do like using these posted, because it actually works very, very well for me posted. So, a Parker 45. This is the classic. This is circa 1960. And I put in, like I said, the Monteverde Yosemite Green. Now, I told you that this is a workhorse of a pen. It actually is very reliable. Every time I've pulled this one out and I've used it, it's not giving me any hassles. It's got a very simple steel nib on it. It is not going to have a whole lot of line variation on it. I wouldn't expect it to be anything fancy, but it's smooth enough to be very acceptable in use. So I've never had a problem on any Parker 45 or variant thereof, including Eversharp, by the way, when I make that statement. Alright, next up is the insignia Parker 45. And you've got very similar, you know, it's all black here for its section. Same kind of steel nib. Let's go ahead and post it. It's all metal, so it is a little heftier than the other. But still, let's see how we do here. This being the Parker 45, and this is the insignia model. And this one just came out, you know, a little while later than the other. And what did I put in for it? I decided to go ahead and put in some Parker Quink. This is a modern bottle. I actually have a 1950s, 1960s bottle of Parker Quink up on the shelf, but this is a modern version of it. Now, does it write better? Well, let's find out. This certainly is slightly more responsive than the other, and this pen was probably a little more expensive than the other one as well. But I haven't had to do any nib work on any of my Parker 45s. They have been, I will not say that they are buttery smooth, but they are not scratchy. You do get a little bit of feedback as you write with it, but it's smooth enough to be very acceptable right out of the box. And like I said, I haven't had to touch them. I haven't had to smooth them. You know, maybe I'll take just a few seconds with micromesh if I wanted to be really, really picky, just to bring it a hair smoother. But it is smooth enough where I wouldn't do that. I don't have any problem with the way it is. So it keeps up with me just fine. So I've been quite happy with that. And yes, actually my hands look better than I've been fighting with pens and ink quite a bit today. I actually was looking more Smurfy a little earlier today. A lot of that blue ink has already gone off my hands, believe it or not, with the residue here that you're looking. Alright guys, the Parker 45. This is, like I said, these are just two of them that I've got here in my collection. I showed you some of the others. It's worth the investment because they're not that expensive. And what I had to do for each of these when I got them was simply flush them out really, really well. Get a little pen flush in a bulb syringe and water. And I just flushed them out. And then just for good measure, like I normally would do, I put them in my ultrasonic cleaner with pen flush them all out with water after that. And this particular one, I just used a little bit of metal polish on the exterior of it in order to get it to look a little less grungy. It actually looks better than it did, but I still may want to spend a little more time seeing how much better I can polish it and get a nice, really good shine on it, more so than it's already got. But never had a single problem with any of my 45s. Reliable writers, first time, every time. And then I run out of ink and I put them up because I don't re-ink them automatically because I've got a lot of other pens to use and I've got other Parker 45s. What I might do, however, is ink up that Parker 45 desk pen yet again. I actually have a desk set with two horns sitting here on my desk, and I've only got one of them filled right now and that's with a Waterman 67 that I keep on my desk at all times. And the other one's empty, so I've been deciding what I want to put in it. And I've run some other brands, some Schaefer's and some Esterbrooks through there. And I may just ink up that 45 with a black ink, so I have a variation of inks. So, I've been very happy with a 45. I can't complain. So, if you're looking for a decent quality pen, take a look at the 45. I'm going to throw out yet another commercial for my buddy at Antique Digger. Matter of fact, you need to do what I do. I literally have ordered here just recently from Antique Digger, and I suspect I'll be sharing with you the interesting pen that I found very interesting because I didn't have one in my collection, and you don't find them very often. It was a little rare, I thought, but I'll be doing a full video on that after it arrives and after I get it broken in and played with. I'll produce a whole video on it, but use discount codes. I did not buy this off his website. Like I said, I bought this out of a lot of pens that he was offering up to some of his preferred customers. But you can go to antiquedigger.com and you get 10% off from your purchases there. Just use discount code TROY at your checkout. I encourage you to do that. I use discount codes when I shop there on a regular basis because I can, and who doesn't want to save some money, right? But I encourage you to support small-time independent businesses, especially guys like Greg at Antique Digger. Had a great relationship with him for years now, and I encourage you to go develop one with him and other distributors of your choosing. Just save some money along the way, won't you? All right, guys, thanks. Talk to you later. Bye.